Welcome to the Mining and Metallurgical Society of America webinar series. MMSA is an association of senior industry professionals who conduct themselves and their work to the highest standards. The society only accepts applicants who have been educated, trained, and experienced in the mining industry for at least 10 years and have been referred by colleagues and industry peers. Once a member, a professional may apply to be a qualified person with the earned expertise in one or more defined professions from specific and extended work in the industry. If you are interested in becoming an MMSA member, please be sure to check out our website at mmsa.net for information on the application process. The Society is dedicated to increasing public awareness and understanding about mining and why mined materials are essential to modern society and human well-being. The Society concerns itself with fundamental principles and with problems facing the industry in such areas as legislation, economics and education, as well as environmental concerns, labor relations, and health and safety. Representatives of the Society from time to time testify before legislative bodies and provide advice to federal agencies. The MMSA provides continuous professional development opportunities for its members through the QP webinar series. The series provides subject matter expert lectures on a wide range of mining topics and is presented most months of the year. I am Kristen Guerin-Davy, MMSA member and social media and webinar director. I will be introducing today's webinar. The title of today's webinar is the WMC 2026 Washington, D.C. Fly-In and Symposium Recap by Lindsay Wright, Executive Director at WMC. Questions can be entered into the chat. Please turn off your cameras unless you are asking a question. And I'll hand it off to Curtis.
Thank you, Kristen, and welcome everybody to the June MMSA webinar. Lindsay Wright is a seasoned accounting and finance professional who is serving as the Executive Director at Women's Mining Coalition. Her industry background has been in both commercial real estate and mining, most recently serving as a finance manager for Ioneer Limited, who are developing the Rhyolite Ridge lithium boron project in southern Nevada. While also serving as the Executive Director of the Women's Mining Coalition and representing the organization on the Western Mining States Coordination Council and at the National Mining Association, she is an active member of the SME, the AEMA, the Nevada Mining Association, and Women in Mining USA. Lindsay is a displaced Texan residing in Nevada. Lindsay, we welcome your address.
Awesome. Thanks, Curtis. And thank you, Kristen. It just dawned on me. I don't know that I necessarily qualify to be a member of MSA just yet. I've only been in the industry for 8 years now. But yeah, thank you, Curtis. And as you mentioned, my background is a bit in commercial land development. I'm also a registered landman and really dove into that part of my sort of career as I got into the mining industry and the synergies from coming from commercial land development back in Texas. So thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. As I mentioned, I'm here to discuss do a recap of the Women's Mining Coalition 2026 Fly-In and Inaugural Symposium. I would assume, and I don't want to be, I don't want to assume, but I do assume that a lot of people on this call are familiar with the Women's Mining Coalition. But if there are any questions in more detail about the organization, happy to walk through it. So we'll get started. Going to go through the agenda today, just do some quick introductions of the organization, and discuss, how the WMC affects change. Through our fly-in, which has been around for over 3 decades. And then one thing I'm really excited to talk about today is our inaugural symposium that we put on this year. It was really successful, and I'm excited to walk through that process and who we met with and really sort of give you a detailed insight into that day, as we haven't really given that to a lot of people, but it'll be great to share it with the MSA network. So, and then obviously we'll talk about the office visits and the topics that we discussed on the Hill and within offices, and then I can share any of that information with you guys after the meeting. As I mentioned, the Women's Mining Coalition has been around since 1993. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it. We have 3 female founders, Ruth Caraher, Kathy Benedetto, and Debbie Strusacker, who are still actively involved in our organization today. I don't know if Debbie's on the call today. I know she's traveling. She was texting me from Wyoming on a road trip this morning. So, but super actively involved still, and having our founders part of the organization and having that historical sounds like a horrible word, but all that knowledge that we can pull from as someone, who's, as I mentioned, young in my mining career. It's great to have them as mentors and leaders within our organization. Our mission is to advocate for today's modern mining industry. I always tell people that, yes, we can do lobbying. It is a part of our 501c4 status, which is, more of a tax basis, but we're advocates. We're advocates for our industry. We all come from industry. We work currently in industry, and it separates us from the rest of, I think, the industry and other organizations, in that they truly are lobbyists, or they don't have that sort of boots on the ground experience. And that's one thing I really love about the Women's Mining Coalition, why I got involved in it, 6 years ago, and then why I'm so passionate about it today. So. Just do a quick introduction of our leadership team. So our board of directors, we have an amazing board of directors. They cover, across all sectors and expertise within the industry, health and safety. We have legal, coal, hard rock. I'm looking at my names here. We also have representatives from associations. Having people like Kenna O'Neill as our secretary and Emily Arthen, who's the CEO of the American Coal Council, really helps us to really dig into those partnerships within the industry and make them more robust. And it really helps us when I have a question about coal, being able to reach out to someone like Emily. So I have an incredible board of directors and executive committee who have been super supportive as we've, sort of taken this journey down the road of doing a symposium and this year, and sort of the changes that people have seen in our organization over the last couple of years. So how the WMC affects change on Capitol Hill. So in 1993, I love the story of WMC because it has evolved so much over the last 3 decades. And obviously the mining industry has evolved as well. But one thing is so true when we go to DC every year is that it really is impactful to have people who have boots on the ground experience in DC. Staffers and members are constantly meeting with lobbyists and people who are paid to talk about one project or this or that. And so when they see us coming to DC, or they really do open their doors to us. We don't have, and I get in the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of support behind the mining industry, and especially in DC, and people are much more knowledgeable about it. But they really do want to meet with us, have conversations. Regardless of the side of the aisle they're on, we are a nonpartisan organization. And so we definitely approach this more from a perspective of bringing ideas, bringing our experience so that they can make the best decisions they make, on Capitol Hill that affects our industry. These fly-ins have been happening since 1993. The first trip, I might be misspeaking, but Debbie mentioned to me that they went 6 times in the first year, thinking they were going once to have one conversation, saw once, and now they've gone back, for the last 3+ decades with hundreds of people. And so really exciting. And the WMC, I was really proud to take over the organization. And I'm proud to be the leader of it because I know how impactful it is. The reputation that I inherited is amazing. And everyone really respects the WMC in DC, and they're constantly looking to the organizations for advice, for opportunities to testify. If anyone caught the Earth MRI hearing yesterday, we were actually asked to have one of our members testify, but she's in Italy, so unfortunately she could not. But things like that, so we're really I'm actively having conversations in DC. I'll be back in DC in a couple of weeks for the ACC coal fly-in. And so, the power of advocacy is important. And I think some people tend to think that, there is a difference between advocacy and lobbying. And for me, as a member of this industry, as a miner, going to DC, I can't stress it enough to everybody. Just go, go and have these conversations. Go, don't be afraid. Don't, and it's such a great organization to be a part of, but also just do it on your own. Be an advocate on your own if you aren't able to come with the WMC kind of thing. Okay. Very passionate about it. So sorry. How we do it. So For those of you who may not be familiar or haven't attended a fly-in. This stretches over 1 week, a couple of days. The last year we've sort of changed the format a little bit, because we've added the inaugural symposium, we have less office visits, but that symposium is sort of taking the place of bringing more people into one room as opposed to taking a lot of people into a lot of different rooms. And that was sort of the idea. But we still do the office visits. We spent Wednesday of the week on the Senate side, and then Thursday on the House side. I want to sort of point, I added pictures into this presentation because it sort of gives you an idea of the things that we did while we were there, that I think are really important. In this upper left hand, or actually start with the lower right hand picture. While we were there, there was a the Forest Service was going through their fiscal year 27 budget hearing. That is the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee putting on this hearing with Chief Schultz. In the top left-hand corner, and what I stress to our participants is to, while also going to DC to be a part of these conversations and office meetings and going to the symposium, go be a part of the everyday sort of activities that happen on the Hill. Because they're public. You can walk into any hearing for the most part, I think, a lot of them, and sit in the audience and watch and see how people interact. It was really nice to see that there was a House hearing on Thursday, and with the House Natural Resources Committee, and we had a lot of Women's Mining Coalition members in the audience, decked out in red because we do the colors, and they really got to see how well these politicians actually work together, which is so interesting that I think people don't get to see that side. And someone came up to me and said, "That is so weird. This is not what I see on the news." And I said, "Well, you probably should stop watching the news." But because it is so different, there is a lot of stuff going on in DC, and there's a lot of great things going on in DC, especially for the mining industry. And so that top left picture was the women who were in that hearing. After it was over, they sort of popped up there and said, "Can we take a picture?" and got to go sit where all the senators sit. And so that was pretty fun. In the bottom left-hand corner, this picture, for any of you from Nevada, this is Congressman Amodei. Congressman Amodei is actually retiring this year. But we had sort of a last minute meeting with him just to sort of say goodbye. He has been a huge supporter of the Women's Mining Coalition, the mining industry. He was obviously previously the Nevada Mining Association president, I believe. And so when we go to DC, we usually get to meet directly with him, sit down, have real conversations, as opposed to with staffers, which are just as important. But this conversation, and I love this picture because this conversation, you can see the pattern that happened on May 14th to the person he's talking to being asked to testify in the hearing yesterday. And so these relationships and these conversations that continue to happen, that is Sherry Leedon of Nevada Resources, if anyone is familiar with her. These conversations are so important and impactful that they want to keep hearing from us, and they want to keep hearing what we have to say and our expertise. And so Sherry is not a politician. She's not a lobbyist. She is a geologist. But she advocates for the industry and mineral exploration, and she's been doing it for multiple years now. And so it was great to see that effect that we had, and the impact and the actual, being asked to testify is I think a great thing for anybody. But to see that it happened because of her involvement in the WMC is even more, exciting for someone like myself. While we're in DC and we're having these meetings, obviously, we do have a bit of a structure, right? We have these meetings, and then we do a lot of follow-up afterwards. I've been constantly having conversations with people in DC and staffers. Once our members sort of leave the Hill, it sometimes gets pushed over to me, and I take on that relationship, and we continue having conversations, which is really great. We definitely this year focused on natural resource offices. Historically, it seemed as if we were doing more quantity over quality, and we're doing a lot of office meetings that we almost felt weren't impactful, and we weren't having any type of conversation. And so to avoid that, we really wanted to focus on, which there's 250 offices that touch natural resources. So there's still plenty to choose from. But we wanted to be really specific in who we met with this year. coordination with affiliate organizations across hard rock and the coal sectors. As you'll see later in the presentation, we really do work closely with organizations like AEMA, ACC, National Mining Association, to really understand what's going on in DC and what these offices want to hear from us. What topics are happening. For example, last year while we were in DC, 2 weeks prior, I believe it was 2 weeks prior, was when they shut down the mining program at NIOSH, right? So we were right in the mix of having those conversations. And, I still, Javad is right down here in Reno. And so I get this great opportunity because I'm in the Western states and I can really push on that. I'm also in DC and can express how important this program is. And then that was reestablished, I believe, for hard rock at the beginning of this year. Coal, I believe, was last year. But while we were in DC, I was having conversations with Andrea Brickey and discussing, what can we do? We're boots on the ground right now. How can we be helpful? And this became a major part of our fly-in last year, and hopefully it was really helpful, which I do think it was. But yeah, and the other thing too is we always leave these offices saying we want to be a resource. We want to be a resource to you individually, as an office, as an agency. So please reach out to us. We have our website has a lot of information, a lot of solid information, good information that you can look to, a lot of data about what's going on. And so that's one thing that we do, is really make sure we take care of the relationships we have with people in DC. This year's fly-in, these are some statistics about the actual fly-in and office visits. We had representatives from 17 states. I say across 3 countries. We have people from Australia, Canada, and they may live in the States, but they have these. I use that because they have these different perspectives. They can bring perspectives from their other countries and bring it into the U.S. and say what works for them, what doesn't, and it's really valuable to have those people in the room when you're having these conversations. We participated in an estimate of a little over 80 office meetings, which is great. That's still about, last year, I think we hit about 150. And so for cutting off 2 of our days for office visits, it was still a really great time. The type of companies that we have that are represented are from mineral exploration. Like I mentioned, Cherie, she is a geologist who runs her own business here in Nevada, up to leaders from Hecla and major mining companies. Core has always been a great company that participates in our fly-in. They send multiple representatives, and so we have a great group of people who come to DC. Expertise covers permitting, engineering, geology, tribal engagement. Our current president, Haley Ramber, who's actually in the top left photo there, she is a tribal member, and she also, that is her sort of day-to-day tribal engagement consulting, previously with Perpetua. Then we have a lot of people who work in sort of the ESG, government affairs, safety, and health as well. This is a great photo at the bottom here. This is one other thing that's really nice too, is while we go to DC, there's a lot of networking opportunities. Obviously, not every one of these people can meet with a senator directly, so they'll host a coffee or a breakfast. The Battleborn Breakfast is a really well-attended event while in DC. They do it weekly, and it's put on by Senators Rosen and Cortez Masto. And so our team, our Nevadans or people who have projects that they work on projects in Nevada, they get an opportunity to go and have, about 2 minutes to talk to the senators and say hello and represent the Women's Mining Coalition. So it's really nice. Okay. And Kristen, if you'll, we're about 20 minutes and I just want to make sure I pay attention to my time. So one thing that this year that I'm really excited to talk about was that we put on our inaugural symposium. Now, going into this, we didn't really know how it was going to turn out. But the idea was sort of, in last year's fly-in, we tested out having sort of these fireside chats. I had recognized in my first year putting on the fly-in and my first year attending a fly-in that there would be specific people who got to go and meet with agencies and go and meet with specific offices. And for me, I thought that's not necessarily unfair, but it would be really great to have the people who are in these decision-making, positions in a room with 90 people and hearing from all of them, as opposed to one or two people, which usually is myself, and I get to talk to them already. What's the point of me meeting them, right? But so this symposium was, bring everyone who's important and talks in the agencies and within Congress together, to have a day filled with, mining conversation. We had about 90 attendees to this, pretty much all of the people who participated in the fly-in a couple of days later, and then additional people registered for the event as well, which was a really great showing. We expected to have about, our goal was to hit 100, and we almost got there. We had a great speaker list. I sort of laugh when I think about this, because in the middle picture, you'll see a woman in the blue dress. Her name is Ashley McManus, and Ashley is a member of the Women's Mining Coalition. She also is a former director for the House Natural Resources Committee and used to work for Chair Westerman. But she's now a member of the Women's Mining Coalition. She left the public sector a couple of years ago. I ran into her at the Mining Expo in 2024, I guess it was, whenever that was, and had a quick conversation. And from that conversation spurred this idea of partnering with the company at Lot 16, who already have an established relationship with the WMC through people like Debbie Strusacker, and this relationship that goes on for so many years working with staffers. And their organization volunteered pretty much pro bono hours of their time and their relationships and to help us put this event on. We asked all of these offices and these members to come and participate in the day, and everyone we asked participated, except for one who got sick the night before from the NEDC. But everyone we asked, either they immediately said, "I'm so sorry, I've already got a conflict." There was only one person who did that, but she sent somebody from the DOE in their place. And so we were super thankful for that relationship with Lot 16. And I like to give them credit, because if you ever have needs while you're in DC, reach out to them. They are public affairs, boots on the ground, so knowledgeable. They all come from the Hill, and just a great relationship for the WMC to have really leaned into in the last year and a half. And we look forward to continuing to work with them for the 2027, fly-in. This year we had keynote speakers, Chair Westerman from the House Natural Resources Committee, and then Congresswoman Representative Hageman she's the at-large member from Wyoming, and which for some people, I don't know that they realize this, but that she is actually leaving the House and she is running for the Senate position that I believe either I can't remember if it's Lummis or Barrasso is leaving Congress on the Senate side. And so I got the opportunity to do a fireside chat with her, and wow, she's an incredibly powerful human being just in general. Her presence is you take notice of her. She's so wickedly smart, and I was so excited to have the opportunity to talk to her. Both of these people, the reason we asked them to participate was because at the time, she has the Domestic Ore Act, which is out there, and we'll go through that as one of the topics in the later slides. But if you're not familiar with the SPEED Act, it is the big permitting reform bill that went through the House last year that was championed by Chair Westerman and all of his team at House Natural Resources, and they got that passed. I believe it was in December. It was right at the end of the year, and so right now I need to check the where it sits on the Senate side, but it's in EPW over on the Senate, and they're really trying to get that done before the end of this Congress. And so these are two pieces of legislation that we highlighted during both the symposium, talking to each one of them. And then the idea was to have this conversation with them about their bills so that it's fresh on the minds of the people in the audience who are then going to the Hill the next day, specifically to the Senate and to EPW offices to talk about the need for permitting reform, right? And so it's a bit of strategy put into the planning of this event and what we're hoping people get out of it when they participate in it and come, to the fly-in. So, also one thing new this year we did a big sort of party with AEMA celebrating the inaugural symposium. If anyone was able to join us, it was a great great event, and we really appreciate the partnership with AEMA and what they do to support the Women's Mining Coalition. And so, like I mentioned, Kenna O'Neill is on our board, and that relationship has really helped the WMC to sort of step up how we fundraise, how we execute, and really are impactful while we're in DC. So now, before I go to the next slide, I want to say it's going to look daunting. I didn't want to put a lot of words. Instead, I just put pictures because I want to walk through each one of these in more detail to give you an idea of who they are and why they're important, and what they're working on behalf of the mining industry. And I have my notes here. So if you see me look down, these are all my notes from the symposium. So I'm going to start in the front and center. So Emily Dominich, if most people are familiar with the Fast 41 process and the Federal Permitting Council, she is the executive director. She is a spitfire. She is so excited to be doing this with the mining industry. She is so excited that the Permitting Council has taken all of this on, and she's so knowledgeable, and I was so impressed by her willingness to do more. One thing that was really exciting was there's currently, the Permitting Council has been signing MOUs with states through the governor's office. So you would have seen it for, I believe, Idaho, Alaska. I think Wyoming has one. And while we were at the symposium, in the audience, we went to Q&A, Steve Trussell, who is the Arizona Mine Association executive director, he said to her, or because she asked, if there's anyone here who can help us sign MOUs, please reach out to us. We need to know. He raised his hand immediately. He said, Arizona will do this. And so in that one conversation, I don't know if it's happened. I'm sure they have they have to work through a lot of things, but he said, I'm calling the governor. We will get this. We will figure this out. We want to do this with you guys as well. And so something really exciting to see happen real time, that the WMC, we created a format or an environment where this collaboration was able to be seen in real time, which was super exciting. To the right, we'll go clockwise. That is U.S. Forest Service Chief Tom Schultz. He's originally from Idaho, really knowledgeable about the mining industry, but he is a forester, his background, and for many of us in the West, wildfires and that is really prevalent. And so getting to hear his perspective, and he's such a interesting guy, kind of soft-spoken, well, at least he was, in my opinion, but really smart and really here for the mining industry. One big thing that came up during the conversation was the 228A regulations. If anyone was a part of that process, a couple weeks prior to our symposium, the comment period on those regulations had closed, which we did comment on, the WMC did, and it wasn't a very great situation, if that makes sense. And so it was a bit sensitive, but it was really great because you get to, again, see an opportunity real time to have conversations with the people that are doing the work. We're writing comment letters here in Nevada, and then I'm going to DC and having a conversation directly with Tom Schultz about that comment letter. And they're doing something to fix it. They're listening to the mining industry and saying, we're going to redo this. We're going to fix it, and, just keep working with us, kind of a thing. So really enjoyed having him there. As I mentioned, he testified, or he had his hearing for his budget the following morning, which our team got to go and sit and sort of participate in. Madeline Bugle, she is with the DOE CMEI office and the National Battery Strategy. And so having Madeline there to sort of talk about these new offices that they have created and their focuses was great. She touched on, these international agreements that they have been, and partnerships that they've been signing, things like the Mine of the Future program, and then ways that we can engage, or people in the audience and proponents and companies and individuals can engage with the DOE. And so it was really great for her to sort of kick off the day. Catherine Scarlett, she's the chairman of the White House CEQ, which, CEQ has been in the news a lot. Well, at least in the mining industry, has been in the news a lot lately. And I was saying it was really funny. I'm currently doing my master's right now, and I was in my public lands course, and my professor had posted something about the CEQ the day that she was on stage, and it was just this weird sort of small world interaction. But the things that the CEQ are focused on, I want to list off a couple of these things of notes that I made. She covered, categorical exclusions, the importance of those, and what they're thinking about the CADEX guidance in the new environment that we're living in. One other note I want to make sure. Okay. Oh, this is the one. So there was one thing that was really interesting was the growing interest for using AI in the permitting process. And for most people, I'm not sure if they're familiar with it, and I'm going to continue to educate myself on this. But the CEQ has an AI permitting program, and so while they've sort of put out these best practices and really put the ownership down to the agencies, they are focused on this AI permitting program and really trying to streamline the process. And that was one thing that I found really interesting about her talk. Kate McGregor, the Department of the Interior, she is the Deputy Secretary. For any of you who aren't familiar with her, she basically is second in line to Secretary Burgum. And so having her come, she comes from the Hill. She worked in power prior to coming back to the Trump 2 administration. And I was able to see her in Miami for the coal forum. They're really supportive of coal right now. The coal sector, if anyone hasn't seen the news lately, is getting a lot of love. And I think someone like Kate McGregor is very much a part of that process and really supportive of the industry. Peggy Brown, EPA Office of Water. This one was really funny. Peggy, their schedules are crazy. They have they show up 5 minutes before they're supposed to go on stage and have to run off to go to another meeting. And there was traffic during her fireside chat. So she, you can't see her shoes in this, they're heels, got out of traffic 3 blocks away and ran down the street to come make it to our panel in time. And we're so thankful. I was messaging her that the other day, just telling her how thankful we were to have her here, or to have her with us in DC to talk about water. Obviously, for someone like Julie Lucas, who was her moderator up in Minnesota, the boundary waters, whether or not it's affected by the EPA, water is super important to all of our projects, and it was a really great discussion. And she was very excited, as you can tell. Does anyone have any questions right now or anything? Go on to the next slide, because it keeps going. We had a lot of people in one day. Maybe next year we'll have to do this in a day and a half or two. But, a full day of people joining us. So in the afternoon, well, I do want to say one thing. So I put Wayne Palmer on this second tab alongside the panel discussions that we did in the afternoon. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Wayne Palmer is the Assistant Secretary of Department of Labor's MSHA, and Wayne also comes from the associations. He was the senior vice president of Essential Minerals Association. He worked under the first Trump administration, and he is such a supporter of the mining industry. And I was able to meet him a few years ago, have a great relationship with him. When he was trying to staff his team at MSHA, he called me, "Do you know anybody?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm not that well connected, I guess." And so, but we've just kept this really great relationship going. And they approached me at the beginning of the year when I was in DC and said, "We'd like to sign an alliance agreement with the Women's Mining Coalition." The press release just went out yesterday evening, I believe it was. We announced it on our socials this morning, and basically, it's an agreement with MSHA that says we will partner together in best practices. You can lean on us, and we can lean on you. They've been great with us. We expect to see them at the symposium moving forward through this alliance agreement every year. And so this was an opportunity for us to sort of do a public signing for that agreement while we were all in DC. Really fun, really fun. In the afternoon, we did a bunch of panels, one over with the congressional staff, with our state association leadership team, and then what we call an outside voices panel, which is made up of sort of think tanks. Right there in the middle, or in the pink skirt, that's Abigail Hunter. She's executive director of the mining at critical minerals and mining at SAFE. And so and then CSIS, Meredith on the far right. She is from CSIS, and then Dr. Michelle Foss. She is with Lacadier. I can't say the name very well, but she comes from the Baker Institute, and she's a native Houstonian, just like me. So, and an active member, and she participated in the fly, and she's a member of the WMC as well. And so they have. We wanted to give these people an opportunity to come, and we see them on social media, we see them on LinkedIn, and I follow all of their information, and it's just these ideas. They have ideas that they are just spitting out, and so it was a great opportunity to have them come and have those conversations, really honest conversations about what's going on, where there's problems, where there's opportunities, and and get their opinions. And it was a really great panel, and we really appreciate them participating. The congressional staff panel, I can't believe we got all these people, all these staffers in one place at one time. You have representatives from the Senate Finance Committee, the Congressional Western Caucus, Senate Energy and Natural Resources, EPW, and then House Natural Resources. And Mark Compton moderate that for us. Basically, we got updates from each one of these committees on what's going on and what they're working on. The woman in the black dress right there in the middle, Maggie, she is with EPW. So she had a bit of a spotlight on her, considering they're working on, what's going on with the SPEED Act. And while she couldn't talk to us a lot about things, just legally wasn't allowed to, it was really great to have her there, because she was leading the charge on getting the SPEED Act passed through Congress. And so, and then our state association leadership teams, Ben Davenport, Julie Lucas, Deanna Skabinski, and Brian Summers, with Kenna O'Neill moderating. I love, one thing that I get the opportunity to do as the WMC is sit on a council with all of these leaders from the state associations. We get to connect, lean on each other throughout the year. We meet once a year in a different state to talk about, have a business meeting, discuss what's going on in each one of our states, what are best practices, what's working, what we can take back to our states, can we partner together on things. And because I don't represent a state, but I get to sit and be a fly on the wall in these conversations and get to be friends with all these people. And I was really excited they came and participated. And then last but surely not least, Debbie Struzacker. I tell people this, I think I cried when she told me she wasn't gonna be able to come to the fly-in. She was unfortunately sick. And so, but she did call me and say, "Hey, Lindsay, can I still present?" I said, "Let's figure this out. I don't know how the tech will work, but we're going to figure this out." And so, if anyone caught her presentation at the SME conference earlier this year, was very powerful. And so she gave a great presentation that tied the current executive orders from this administration to sort of the history of the Women's Mining Coalition. And it was a really great presentation to give people that, again, the history of where the mining industry has come from, and where it is now, and how we got here, right? So really enjoyed having Debbie a part of the day, and we were so glad that she could participate in that way. Okay. So that's the last part of the symposium, and it's a lot of information. I apologize. I'm trying not to talk too fast, but any questions on this? So Hill visits and topics discussed. These will probably be much faster. We'll go through these pretty quickly. So we had 41 participants across 80 meetings over those 2 days. These office meetings are broken out with about 2 or 3 people, sometimes 4 in each group. Now, I say that with the top one having 7 in it, but that was purely because this was a final meeting with Congressman Amadei before he leaves Congress. So we sent all the Nevada representatives to meet with him, which is why there's more. And one of our favorite people, Judy Colgan down there in the right, in an office meeting with a woman named Rebecca Karhoff. So one thing that's really great about the Women's Mining Coalition is the opportunity to network. These people go back to, when they leave DC, they go back to their day-to-day lives. They go back to their to their cities and to their companies, and they're focused on that. But this 1 week out of the year, they get to collaborate and work together, and you meet a lot of new people, and some great relationships are formed from it. So really great really fun opportunity at minimum. If you're going to get anything out of the fly-in, that might be one of them. So let's go on to our materials and handouts. So there's no reason to read any of this. Also, I want to mention all these next sort of 4 or 5 tabs. They're all online. They're all on our website. We have a section called Fly-In and Issue Papers. These are all posted online. You can go and access them. So this is more just to give you sort of an idea of what we were discussing. One of the topics, as I mentioned earlier, when we were during the fireside chat with Congresswoman Hageman, is her Domestic Or Act. This one of the biggest, the key pieces of this piece of legislation is the project it increases the disturbance to 25 acres or less. This is something that we have actually been talking to since last year, before that, about ways that we can increase mineral exploration. And so it was really nice to see this piece of legislation, get to talk about it at the symposium, and then we had this handout for the office visits. Other one. So this one I just like to share because it's when you talk about the need for permitting reform, I think this picture just tells everyone that we all know that it exists, but seeing it in the view is always so daunting, and it's impactful. And being able to show this to people on the Hill, you always get sort of a reaction out of staffers, especially those who might not be as familiar with mining, and just a little bit of a comic relief, a little bit, sometimes too. So if anyone wants a copy of this, Cassidy and Associates has allowed me to share this publicly. They share it publicly on their social media and things like that. But we also have it on our website if you want a copy of it. And it has been updated as of this year. Another topic that we have been covering is a national exploration data repository. So our ideas around what that could look like and having conversations about it. What was really interesting is, while this was one of our topics that we've been talking about for a couple of years now, the idea of it and what it could look like, it got brought up during the Earth MRI hearing yesterday by one of the witnesses on the panel. So it was really great that this is a conversation that we know is happening, and WMC is really excited that we get to sort of continue to be a part of the conversation and add our insights. And Debbie Strusacker and Sheree Layden put this this flyer together, and we shared it with offices. We're getting a lot of great feedback on a data repository idea, and when I say great feedback, more of, I want to know more. Can we talk about this more? Can we continue to have conversations? And that's all we ask for. So another one. So I partnered with one of our corporate members, Florence Copper. They have the Florence Copper project down in Arizona. I'd watched a presentation they had done at the SME conference, and I said, hey, I think it would be really nice if we could introduce new technologies while we're in DC, right? And Institute Copper Recovery is one of those. And so I asked Florence Copper to sort of put together a flyer that we could, point to as something where it's strategically in certain offices, sometimes they care about the environmental impacts. This is a huge thing for a lot of offices, and so we can point to this and say, hey, do you know about this? It also matters because uranium. There are places in Wyoming that have places in Wyoming that have uranium deposits that would be mined with the in situ recovery. And I actually said that to Congresswoman Hageman, and it was almost as if she knew, but didn't realize other people knew. And so she goes, yeah, exactly. We have these when we were talking about new technologies. And so really great to have this this one pager to sort of point to and provide to the offices. The other thing too, it's a benefit for our corporate members to be able to participate in the conversations. And so as a corporate member, this is a benefit of being a part of our organization, is really getting to sort of be involved in things like this. I think two quick more. The Coal Council. So American Coal Council, again, I mentioned we partner with them on throughout the year on a lot of things. Stay tuned for more. This is kind of a happening now. We may be partnering with the American Coal Council next year to put on our symposium and event together. And so Emily Arthen is one of my predecessors here at the Women's Mining Coalition, and she and I both understand the importance of collaboration, and we look forward to sort of seeing what that looks like in next year. But they provide us with a lot of the coal papers. They're the experts that we get to lean to because a lot of us are more hard rock. And so this is information that they provided for us to hand out in offices. And we're happy to hand out American Coal Council, any logo, MMSA. We want to help provide information. We don't care where it came from. That's kind of my MO, is that if you're the expert, I don't know it. I'd like to make sure that you have a platform to be able to tell somebody. So of working with the American Coal Council. And then we have, of course, the dreaded Mining Schools Act. And, now I'm going to be optimistic about this because I'm really tired of talking about it because I'm so sad that it seems to not be getting anything done. But I do know, last I checked, they had added it into the NDAA. And so we'll see what happens this year, if maybe we can get the Mining Schools Act passed. Otherwise, we may be looking for it to be reintroduced next Congress. So just a quick one pager on mining schools and data. Looking ahead to 2027, like I mentioned, we're already starting planning for 2027 and our event, and we really hope that some of you can join us. One thing I will say is that the fly-in is an opportunity, and what my goal is to create an environment where anyone can come and have a conversation about what you do, what you think of it, if you have an idea, and how we can all collaborate together on progressing the mining industry. And so I hope that some of you might be able to join us in the future. If not, no worries. But I do thank you for letting me present today on a lot of detail about what happens, and a lot of people don't get this insight into what goes on and what we're doing. And so I really thank you for letting me participate today, and thank you to our sponsors. And I want to highlight MMSA is one of our sponsors. They provide grant funding for us each year. We've had a great relationship with MMSA, and we really appreciate the support. And just thank you always for supporting the Women's Mining Coalition. So.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a lot of information, and it seems like you guys got a lot accomplished, which is great. Rebecca just says, thanks, Lindsay. This was awesome. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Is there anyone else that has any questions for Lindsay?
Yeah, yes, I do, Lindsay. This is Betty Gibbs.
Oh, hey, Betty.
Hi. You were talking about the National Exploration Data Repository. And I'm wondering if you're building on what's been done with the Bureau of Mines data that they compiled and the USGS data.
So,
do you know?
So we haven't,
because there's a lot of work that's already been done, so it doesn't have to start from scratch.
Yes. So what we have done on WMC side, the conversations we've been having are saying we think there's a need for it, right? Where that information comes from and how we can help facilitate. For example, the Western Australia Mineral Exploration, WMX is a data repository in Australia. I could probably share this. You know what? We wrote a memo last year that we sent to the NEDC, which is ways to increase mineral exploration, right? This is something that myself, Cherie, Debbie Strusacker, and a couple others sort of pulled together post the meeting we had with the NEDC in DC to talk about this idea of a data repository and what that could look like, because there's people who aren't supportive of it, right? But how we can compromise on things or what it really could look like. And it's more of the idea. Now, I do know that, for example, Debbie and Cherie are in contact with Ned Mamula like weekly. He came to our reception while we were in DC and we had conversations with him. He is I believe in the conversations about that in the background, me personally. But I will take note of that, Betty, and make sure that, I'll run it past Cherie and Debbie and see if they're happy, because they really do work with the USGS relationships heavily, and so I get to sort of benefit from hearing all of that. But I can make a call and find out, and then just kind of send you a note to see what their feedback is. But I would believe that would be a starting point. We don't want to recreate the wheel, or we don't want to start from scratch on these things, and so we would definitely be looking to the USGS in this idea for a data repository. So
Yeah, right. I think they took over what the Bureau of Mines did. And that was the MRDS. I think it was Mineral Resource Data System or something like that. And
right.
somewhere I have a copy of it at one point. So
I well, and also too, when I was in DC, when we were in DC for the fly-in, I spoke to Ned a little bit while we were at the reception, and he's one thing I will talk about is that one thing that we very much realized leaving the fly-in is that as we're having these conversations, it's both apparent to me that people don't know what the Bureau of Mines was. I'm talking about staffers. There's a lot of staff, and I say that not in a sarcastic or negative way. I have to put myself in a mindset of that they don't just deal with mining, right? Even though they're in-house natural resources, they deal with geothermal, oil, like they deal across the board, not just mining, right? And so a lot of people are still having to be educated on what the Bureau of Mines was, right? I don't think the idea is to necessarily bring back the Bureau of Mines, because we are trying to support other avenues that are in progress within Congress right now. But because all of those tasks were, disseminated, most of them, people like Ned have looked and been like, well, here's what my agency can do. And hey, guess what? I have this amount of money. I can bring on these type of people, an economic geologist, for example, right? So people who are looking at the economics of projects, as opposed to just someone who's looking at the data and providing data, right? But someone who's thinking about it from how can we the economic development standpoint. So these conversations are being had, and those are very much stem from the ideas that come from the Bureau of Mines. So there's and if you haven't met him already, his name is Bert Thomas. Bert Thomas is I love that guy. He is he works out of the old Oregon Bureau of Mines office, or in Oregon, and he works for the DOE. And I talked to him last week, and again, he brings up the Bureau of Mines in every single panel I see him sit on. So people within the government are talking about the Bureau of Mines more heavily now. So that is very promising to me too. Now it's in the agencies where they're more familiar with it. But for WMC, our goal is just to keep talking about, here's what it was. How do we make sure that those things that were happening are at least brought back in other offices, or there's ways to, whether it's a director of mineral resources, right, within the office of the president. That's something that we are supportive of and working with them on. So,
yeah, I agree. Women's Mining Coalition doesn't have to do everything, but pointing out where things are is a very important thing. Also, I wanted to say that I have seen WMC develop over the years, and I am so impressed with what you all are doing and accomplishing now. I think you all have done a great job.
Well, thank you, Betty. Well, and to for those of you who don't know this, Betty did when I first took over this role, Betty was integral in me being able to understand how things were happening on the back end, and especially with our website, the new one that we have now. And but she was doing a lot of work, trying to be retired and enjoy herself. She was doing a lot for us, and we would not be here without people like Betty. And I don't know if Ann Carpenter is still on, but same with Ann Carpenter.
And
just
Debbie
like
Strusacker,
of course,
what a treasure.
Yeah, she, again, texting me. She's I don't know if she remembers the time zones, but I would be lying if I said I haven't gotten such a career development. Not necessarily mentorship, right? That's great to have, but the learnings that I've taken away from this over the last 4 years has been I can't even explain. So, I mean, I changed my career. I no longer work in finance and business. I work um, uh, um, in government relations, land, and sort of development. So, um, and it's because of people like Debbie. It's because of the WMC, and just the great work that I think it is doing and has done and will continue to do. So.
Great, Lindsay. Also, Anne did say, well done, Symposium looked to be a great success, and I'd agree with that. Great. Well, thank you again, Lindsay. That was so much information. And we really appreciate your excellent presentation. And also thank you to everyone who attended the webinar. The recording of this webinar will be posted on our YouTube within the week, and I'll also send it to Lindsay to send out to WMC in general. All of our we'll post on our LinkedIn pages as well when the video and slides are up on the MMSA website. Our next webinar will actually be in September. We're taking a bit of a summer break, and then that's going to be a recap of the Abandoned Mines Land Symposium that's going on this summer in, I believe, Kellogg, Idaho. The MMSA webinars are supported by the MMSA Jacqueline Foundation. And again, if you are interested in becoming an MMSA member, please be sure to check out our website at mmsa.net for information on the application process. The webinar is now ended. Thank you so much.
Kristen.